Good morning, everybody, and welcome in to Coffee Break, presented by Bath Fitter DMAC outside of Ball Arena. Rachel Veal hanging out with you. Will Peterson also going to join us here in a little bit because there's a ton to talk about. But DMAC, I'm just going to rant real quick for a second to you because the fact that we are having so many late games, I honestly think is ruining it for a lot of sports fans. The fact that the overtime games last night were going into the 11 o'clock hour, I'm like, are you kidding me? Because if you're on the East Coast, it's 1 a.m. out there for you. Like 11 o'clock is already late for me. I feel like I need to just rant about this for a little bit because I want to watch these games, but I also need to go to bed to be able to get up and work the next day.
I feel you, Rachel. I mean, hey, everybody who stayed up for the double overtime Dallas Minnesota game, you get a gold star right there. So,
Seriously.
but hey, I feel you. Especially on the weekends, seems really dumb. But we have another late start here at Ball Arena with the Avalanche going at 8 o'clock, which is an hour later than normal. And oh well, the price of doing business here in the playoffs. But I feel you. I know where you're coming from. But when you just gather yourself and you just look at how exciting these next 7 straight nights are going to be, Rachel, despite probably having to stay up a little bit late, you know, get ready. Nap up during the day, do what you can because it's unbelievably unique.
It is, and we're so lucky. And I want to be able to watch all of the games. And I feel for the younger generations, right? We talk all the time about the altitude Comcast and how it's the younger generations that are getting affected, the ones that are going to carry on all this legacy. But that's the same way even if you're watching on a national game and hey, mom and dad won't let you stay up till 11:30 p.m. because you have school the next day, so you can't even watch the games, the exciting moments. Like it's so frustrating to me and I don't know what the solution is. I'm just like, we all want to be able to watch the games. We all want to be able to sit and talk about the games. And yet they're just so late that you can't do that.
Well, there's no solution. Have your kids tired at school, I guess. I don't know. Be mom and dad, be aware of it. They're never going to change, Rachel, because at the end of the day, here in the Mountain Time Zone, we're always going to appeal to the West Coast, which is Los Angeles, more so than New York and the East Coast. So we are literally stuck in the middle on this thing until you actually get to a final. And then, everything changes because now everything is for the East Coast, not the West Coast. But hey, listen, this is the life that we have chosen living in the Mountain Time Zone, Rachel. We know what we signed up for. So look at the day, though. I mean, look at how beautiful it is. Look at how amazing it is.
No, I'm with you, and I see the comments too. Edward says, good morning. I'm glad you were able to watch these late games and host the show. Troy says, Rachel, 100%. I'm in New York, and this is killing me. Hoping to get the first period in tonight. 4:30 a.m. comes way too quick. 4:30 a.m. I'm so sorry, my friend.
For those on the East Coast, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
We're complaining about it. I can't even imagine being in New York or Boston or Miami or those sort of places. I mean, forget it. It must feel like the Avalanche are like a yeti, some curious creature from the mountains that only comes out late at night. No, I get it. It probably leans you towards the East Coast bias because that's all they really see. That's all fans really see. So who are these Kraken, Avalanche? What are these things? We've got, the Rangers and the Islanders and the Bruins and, those are our teams. And, I get it. And so it must be a shock to their system when a team that they never see comes out and, kicks their butt.
Let's talk real quick about the Minnesota Wild and Dallas Stars game. Be honest with me. Did you stay up for the entire thing?
No! Wait! I'm right there with you. No, listen, the great thing about playoff hockey is it could end at any moment. Yep. The bad thing about playoff hockey in overtime, it can go all night. You never know how long it's going to go. So, no, I was not sitting there with toothpicks in my eyes, but I was happy about the outcome, and I was happy to see those teams do what we wanted to do, beat the crap out of each other. Yep. And, if you want any sort of reasoning why the Avs fought so hard to win the Central was just because of that game right there. Two really tough teams that would kind of wear you down and wear you out. And we are certainly hoping for, an easier solution with the Kraken. And I'm kind of excited to even see the Kraken today during morning skate. I got to be honest, I'm catching up. I don't know much about them. I'm trying to figure them out on the fly. You don't see them that often. So no, it's kind of exciting to discover a new opponent.
And Will Peterson's going to join us to chit chat with us a little bit about the Kraken. But going back to that game last night, DMAC, you mentioned it. That's exactly what you want. You want these two teams to beat each other up so that hopefully it goes long. They're tired. But the main point is for the Avalanche, this is a long stretch. This is a long game that you're about to play. It's no longer just about, oh, you got to win this first series, whatever. Like, we're all looking at, hey, can the Avs actually repeat? And if so, it's going to be a long series. So you need all the other teams to absolutely beat each other up and to, allow the Avalanche to hopefully get some rest. And we're going to get into, I know yesterday we did our picks too of how many games we think that this series is going to go. But I actually have what the quote-unquote professionals are thinking, and it's actually kind of surprising for me.
Okay, give it to me. What do you got?
They're going 6. Avs in 6 games with the Kraken. We said 5, but we also talked about the road game. So it's just interesting that, they're giving a lot of respect to Seattle despite them having this be the first time they've made the playoffs. And of course, they just got founded back in 2018, I want to say it is. So 6 games for the Kraken. That means that they are able to pull off a few wins against the Avalanche.
I guess. I mean, I don't know how it really happens. But listen, you never know until you start playing the games.
Absolutely.
You see anything for granted. Talking to Jared Bednar, boy, he got uptight. I mean, it was playoff Bedsy. Usually he's pretty open and goes on at length. He wasn't sharing any details about anything. I mean, we go in and we talk to Cale Makar, and he's like, yep, I'm good. I'm ready to go. Let's go. Here I am, and all that sort of stuff. And then you ask Bednar, he goes, I don't know about playing Cale. I'm not sure. I don't know. You're like, welcome to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot. That's what it's like in the playoffs. They don't say anything. They don't give you anything. They're paranoid beyond belief. And okay, it was like, I remember this. I remember this from last year and years past. Like, here we go. So it was all right. You don't get as much information on purpose, and then you kind of go from there. So I think it's cool.
D-Mac, what was your favorite moment from last year? Before we start, this round, you obviously got to travel, but what was your favorite moment from the run last year?
Well, I mean, it's hard to top, winning the cup and being on the ice, around the players and their families and all that. So that was amazing. That was unique. Something I have never, ever experienced. So that was my favorite moment. But I'll give you one other that was kind of cool. We're in St. Louis, and I'm with the Hockey Muggles, who I have a lot of respect for and really like. And there were less than 10 seconds to go. And I said to a Muggle buddy, I go, hey, you never know, because it looked like the game was going to go into overtime. And I go, listen, there's still time. You never know. And that's when it was crazy. It was like unbelievably predictive as Helm, won the game with like a second to go, and everybody went nuts. And I that really stands out to me. Like, we're going to the Western Conference Final. Like, I'm headed to Edmonton, a place that I never in my life thought I would ever go. And that was actually more thrilling to me, that St. Louis series, than actually what turned out to be the Edmonton series, because the Edmonton series was a sweep and it just didn't have quite those same moments. So I'll say those were my two favorite. I mean, there were a bunch of stuff, Rachel. Everything on the journey was remarkable and unforgettable. And let's get some new customers in the building like we do with Seattle.
Let's go. Okay, I believe Will Peterson is with us, so we definitely do want to bring him in because it does all start tonight. And of course, Will does a wonderful job of covering the Avalanche for DenverSports.com. Good morning, Will. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Good. Are you feeling pumped up? Are you ready for tonight?
Oh yeah. I mean, listen, the regular season was more exciting this year than it was last year. Last year it was kind of like the end of the Nuggets, right? It was a slog. This year, regular season was super exciting until game 82. But that being said, this is why the Avalanche are doing this, right? Like, no one is excited to hang a Central Division Champions banner down at Ball Arena. The win in Nashville was fun, but that wasn't the ultimate goal. That was just a necessary step on the way to get the better seeding to hopefully get them another Stanley Cup.
What can you tell us about the Kraken? We know that they're a pretty decent road team. Obviously, they're new. This is their first playoff series. But what else can you tell us for, maybe some fans that aren't sure about anything when it comes to the Kraken?
They're the most anonymous team in the NHL. I told DMAC this yesterday on the drive. Their leading scorer has 70 points, and I've never heard of the guy. Where the Avalanche have Nathan MacKinnon and Mikko Rantanen both over 100. The most interesting thing is definitely Philip Grubauer, because he only played 39 games for the Kraken in the regular season. His goals against was just under 3, and the other goalie, whose name is honestly blanking my mind, went 27-13. So he actually had a better record than Gruby, yet the assumption is Gruby. I'm telling you guys, this has the Nashville Series Part 2 written all over it. This is get your broom out. This is going to be a sweep. Seattle's not ready for these bright lights. Again, I've never even heard any of these dudes. They're a team, because you guys know, when they do expansion teams in the NHL, they kind of slap them together, right? And the fact that Vegas was as good as quick as they were was a miracle. The fact Seattle's as good as quick as they are is kind of a miracle. So it's a lot of decent players, but no one in an expansion draft has given up a superstar. Connor McDavid's never going to be available in an expansion draft. Leon Draisaitl's never going to be available in an expansion draft. Sidney Crosby, Alex Ovechkin, the list goes on and on. There's no one guy on this team that goes, you know what, he's the reason the Avs are going to lose this series. And we saw what Gruby did in the playoffs 2 years ago. If he's the one in net, I think the Avalanche will be the ones lighting the lamp.
Do you have your broom?
Not nearby, but yes, I'll bring it. If they win tonight, I'll bring it tomorrow.
Perfect. That was one of the funniest moments. We don't know where DMAC went. You never know. He was saying hi to people too as they were like out the street when he was down at Ball Arena. But one of the funniest things last year when it came down to Will was he always had his broom ready to go. And so I expect to see it tomorrow. Hopefully we're talking about a win, of course. But you also
Well, and Rachel, real quick, I used it in 2 of 4 series. Like, it was very appropriate because they broomed the Predators. The Blues did give them a little bit of a series, and they broomed the Oilers. So the broom was a necessary prop for 2/3 of the Western Conference Series.
True. Let's talk about Cale Makar. He's obviously healthy. That's what everybody wants to see. They've honestly, besides Gabe, and the more and more I was like sending out my tweet this morning, and I was like, all right, everybody, are we excited? Are we ready to get this thing rolling? And it was slightly heartbreaking because all the pictures that I was looking through, it was Gabe Landeskog. So it's heartbreaking that the captain's obviously not going to be out there. It's like, oh, well, if they win again, like, he doesn't get that moment, which is kind of sad because, of course, like, I just have his memory of this. But Cale Makar is back. The rest of the lineup is healthy too. But you said, and you wrote an article for denversports.com of Cale has to stay healthy for them to be able to lift another cup.
Yeah, definitely, because you look at it, he's played hockey in 1 of the last 3 months. Yeah. He played 2 games in the month of February. He got concussed in both of them. Just horrible luck, but he got concussed against Pittsburgh, and he got concussed against St. Louis. Mm-hmm. He plays the month of March, but then mysteriously plays April 1st and misses their last 7 games with a lower body injury. So Cale Makar's body just hasn't cooperated. He played 60 of 82 games this year, but he joked with reporters yesterday. DMAC had the great quip from Cale. He said, maybe someday I'll be able to play 82 games, but it wasn't this season. Again, it's a guy who's played hockey in 1 of the last 3 months. And you look at the point total distribution last year in the playoffs. Landeskog, Rantanen, and MacKinnon all right around 25. Cale had 29 points. That's why he won Conn Smythe. I'm not saying Landy, Mikko, and Nathan weren't great. Cale was just better. So for everyone who wants to say, oh, the cup run hinges on MacKinnon, or it hinges on Rantanen playing like he played in the regular season. Yeah, sure, somewhat. But to me, the number one factor it hinges on is Cale Makar's health, and that's why I wrote about it at denversports.com today.
DMAC, you're back. Or are you getting the celebrity waves? I saw you doing it earlier. Did someone come up to you?
You never know. You never know who knows me or hates me, Rachel. It could be a wide variety of people, trust me.
True. For you all, obviously we don't want anybody to get injured, but just going back to the article, Cale was Will's person. Out of MacKinnon, Mikko, and Makar, in what order do they need those individuals to make sure that they stay healthy?
Nathan MacKinnon was the best player for them last year. He's the best player for him this year. He's probably the second best player in the world. So everything is about Nathan MacKinnon. They've kind of survived without Kale. Not that they can win a cup without him. And I think to win a cup, you need everybody. But if I were to rank people in order, I would say McKinnon. I would say McKinnon, Rantanen, Kale at this point. It's just a different sort of team. They're not relying on that scoring from Kale McCarr like they did, and they've had other players step up on the defensive side of things. Particularly Bo Byram has been strong, and Devon Taves is good too. But listen, when we're ranking this, it feels like I'm putting somebody down. You cannot win the Stanley Cup with all three of those guys. And then I would throw in the Chushkin, and your JT Compher is incredibly valuable. If you look at the comparable numbers between JT Compher and Nazem Kadri, guys, you'd be blown away. I mean, they both had almost identical offensive numbers for their teams at a fraction of the cost for Compher and Nazem Kadri, and the Flames didn't even make the playoffs. So, listen, it's like, who's your favorite kid? It depends on the day. Trust me, with two college kids, trust me, so these are all good problems to have.
I love how Will, seriously, with you two, I think I need the popcorn more than I need it with D-Mac and Mike. So, Will, I saw you shaking your head like, unbelievable. What do you got for us?
Well, it's just, Kale McCarr's Conn Smythe Trophy would like a word. If, he's the third most valuable player on the Avalanche all of a sudden. That's all I'm saying.
I didn't realize this was last year. I'm sorry. I didn't realize we got in a time machine. I thought we were.
Well, so much has changed in Kale McCarr's ability to play hockey in the last 10 months. Yes, I missed that memo.
What are we talking about? How?
I think so what Rachel's getting at, D-Mac, is I wrote the column today that the Avalanche's cup run legitimately depends on the health of Kale McCarr. So this whole, they survived the last 2 out of the 3 months without him playing because he didn't play February, he didn't play April. That's great. If he gets hurt again in these playoffs, or God forbid he gets another concussion, they are done. They will not win the Stanley Cup. He has to play every game the next 2 months.
Guys, they may be done if Devon Taves doesn't play. They may be done if Val Nichushkin can't play. I mean, it's the depth is not as deep with this team as it was last year. They may be toast if Logan O'Connor can't play on the penalty kill. They may be in big trouble. How about this? If Georgiev can't start every single game. And I know they like Frankie, and he has their confidence, and he played well last year, but he's barely played the past couple of months. So, listen, there's a lot of issues here this year. That's not the same depth. You miss Gabriel Landeskog mightily. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I think they need everybody. I think to win the cup, to beat the Bruins eventually, theoretically, to win the cup, I think they're going to relatively cruise to the Western Conference Final. I do. And I think they'll be a favorite in the final. But the Bruins are on a kind of a crazy tear. I think this series with the Kraken will be like long forgotten quickly. I think they're going to pound them tonight. I think, like you said, Will, you wrote well and spoke well about it. They're kind of a nebulous team. Who the hell are the Kraken? Seriously. And maybe these are the words that come back and bite me, right? Like if I'm doing a Kraken fire-up somewhere in the bowels of Seattle, maybe these are the words that get you going in your coffee shop. But who the hell are the Kraken?
I am a little nervous after you just said that. Well, I do think that the Avalanche will indeed win this series. I agree with what we said yesterday. I think the Kraken will pull out at least one, just because I think the atmosphere in Seattle is going to be so crazy too. I'm seeing everybody in the comments though. People are saying the power play recently has me a little nervous. I'm more nervous about the PK. What's your guys' opinion? Because last year we were talking about the PK all the time. I felt like, there goes D-Mac again, Will. But I feel like we were talking about it all the time, and either it was really, really good, or we were all like, oh, okay, like they're missing a little something. But this year, it's kind of just been a part of the game plan. Like I feel like they haven't had those high lows like they did last year. Maybe that's just me.
Sorry, D-Mac disappeared. Were you asking me about the power play or about the PK?
I was more worried about the PK. I agree, but I can see why people can be a little nervous about the power play as well.
Well, I'll just address the power play to start. The reason people are nervous about that is because, Rachel, they've been missing Cale Makar. He's the one who stirs the drink on the power play. They've also been missing Arturi Lehkonen. He's been out with a broken finger for 14 games ever since the last 2 games.
True.
That power play is going to be the best when you go with Cale and then 4 forwards. It's Cale, it's Nathan, it's Mikko, it's Arturi, and it's Nichushkin, right? So when Cale and Arturi weren't on it, you're missing 40% of it. Heck, in some ways, you're missing 60% of it when you're missing Gabe. So if people are worried about the power play, it's like, well, they didn't have Cale or Arturi on that first unit, and that's the unit that plays a minute 20 of the 2 minutes. So with the power play, that's my thing, is that was a health thing. With the PK, listen, I like it when the Avs are aggressive on the PK. I don't like when it's just 4 getting a diamond and let them pass it around. I like them when they're taking some chances and when they're feisty, but I think Jared Bednar knew they couldn't do that as often this year because they were playing 2-1, 3-2 games, right? When you're playing 6-4 games, you can take chances because if you give one up, it's not that big a deal. When you're playing these tight, low-scoring games, goals are all that much more valuable.
D-Mac, what worries you more, power play or PK?
I'm not worried about either. In this series, I think they're going to dominate on both hands. I'm not worried about the Avs power play. And what's amazing is getting everybody healthy for the first time. The only thing I guess I would be slightly worried about is the sense of communication and flow in the very, very beginning. They had a bad practice yesterday, which is so unusual. And we saw Bo Byram smash his stick in frustration. We talked about it with him on the drive. We wrote about it at denversports.com. I mean, that's, not great. So, hopefully.
Oh, and there he goes. All right. Well, that might be the last we see of D-Mac. Obviously, he's having a few connection issues. Last one for you, Will, and then we will let you go, is the quote-unquote professionals, the big dogs, they've been saying, are actually taking the Avs in 6, allowing the Kraken to get 2 games. How do you feel about that?
All right, so I'm going to go on my rant here about picking teams in 6, okay? Here's why I hate picking teams in 6. Because it's assuming that the higher seed is going to close the series out on the road. Yet we always say, oh, well, these roads are really tough, right? And I agree with you. I heard you guys talking on Coffee Break yesterday. Seattle's going to be out of control, whatever. So that's why I think you either pick the Avs in 5 because they gentlemen sweep them and Seattle just gets 1. Or if you say, wow, Seattle gets it back there for a Game 6, that place is going to be on fire for Game 6. They're going to win Game 6. Therefore, you would pick the Avalanche in 7. I think when people pick them in 6, they're talking out of both sides of their mouth. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me based on the way the series are structured. I think you either think Seattle's home ice advantage is super duper real and you pick the Avs in 7, or I think, you know what, the Avs are just a way better team and you pick them in 4 or 5. I hate the pick the road team in 6 thing. That has always driven me crazy. I saw a lot of Nuggets in 6. I'm like, no, the Nuggets aren't going to win this series in 6. They're either going to win it in 5 because they're just the better team and they closed it out at ball, or Minnesota's going to use their home court advantage and they're going to push it all the way to 7 back here at Ball Arena. After what we saw in Game 1, I think Nuggets in 5, maybe even Nuggets in 4 looks real likely. But Rachel, that is my long-winded way of saying I hate when people pick favorites in 6 because it rarely happens. You should either pick them in 5 or pick them at 7 because they are so much more likely to close it out at home.
I love the rant. I also love the hat on you, Will. You're looking good, and we'll make sure to catch up with you again tomorrow.
Thanks. All right, sounds good. I'll talk to you later and enjoy the game tonight.
Thank you. Okay, Will Peterson right there. Now, of course, D-Mac, you never know where he's going, but luckily I've got Jake Shapiro on the back end, and he's also fabulous and writes so many great articles for denversports.com. And Jake, the funny news of the day is actually Russell Wilson making fun of himself slightly. And I'm kind of here for it. Can you walk us through golf cart gate? Because I'm kind of getting into all of this, and I do think it's quite entertaining. I won't lie.
Yeah, I'm gonna put up the tweet right now, and perhaps I know a little bit more than what's out there, but essentially, Russell Wilson, his drive stalled at Arrowhead. We've seen that before. It just happened so far that this drive just happened to be a golf cart, and it flipped over. And the internet went wild with it yesterday, as they often do with Russell Wilson. And Rachel, it's been a while since we've had one of these. And I know because I was the one writing them about once a month for us during football season. The internet loves to roast Russell Wilson. So it's actually really refreshing, Rachel, to see Russ make fun of himself and know that this is a moment that I can poke fun at myself, because the Subway commercials, the airplane commercials, the high knees, all of it, he was the guy who was taking himself way too seriously. So maybe, just maybe, Russ has turned over a little bit of a new leaf, but for now, at least we're all having a laugh, including Russ, and it appears everyone is okay, which is the most important thing about this.
Oh, absolutely. We're glad everybody is okay. Jake, now I'm going to put you on the spot a little, and you can tell me if you want to talk about it or if you don't, because obviously I want to make sure that your sources feel they can trust you. But you say I might know a little bit more about this than others. Are you willing to share what you do know?
I think it was reported that Russ was not the person driving the golf cart.
Indeed, correct.
Okay, that's out there. Russ was golfing with a couple of his teammates.
Okay.
So one of his teammates was, from what I've heard, driving the cart, not Russ. So, which makes sense because Russ was golfing with his teammates and he wasn't driving. So there you go. So put the math together. Somebody else is driving the cart. Now, choose your own adventure, Bronco. It's out there which ones like to golf. And you guys can put the pieces together. But I, at this time, am not able to put a name to it just quite yet.
You know what? I respect that, Jake. And I actually think that this is a fun game for the coffee break viewers, because I think I know exactly who you're talking about. And indeed, he does like golf, and he's very open about his like for golf. So definitely go do a little research, everybody, and I think you'll be able to probably put a name. But it is funny, and it kind of goes back to your main point. The internet loves to roast Russell Wilson because no other name was thrown out there. Of course, just RW was thrown out there for this incident.
Yeah. But Rachel, that's what happens when you start quarterback too, right?
Sure.
Like, if me, you, and DMAC got into a car crash that was like humorous and not bad, I'm not trying to put us in a bad situation. It would be DMAC and two of his coworkers got into a car crash.
100%.
Right? Like, I always do this when I'm on an airplane, Rachel. Like, if this plane goes down, is it Jake Shapiro and 275 people perish in this airplane? Or is it going to be, like, oh my God, it's John Hamm and 274, and I'm just one of these 274. Like, I don't know. I play that game every once in a while, and gosh, is it morbid. But the other one I like to play, Rachel, and this is a good one, and it's always Broncos themed, at least in Denver, is in Denver. If you owned a restaurant and you always had to keep a table just in case the most famous person was coming there, who would get that last table? So, like, if it's Russell Wilson, is somebody booting Russell Wilson out of that table because they're more famous? And I think yes, but I want to hear your answer.
Ooh, this is actually a really good question. Okay. So I'm a restaurant owner and I'm keeping a table, and Russell Wilson is sitting at the table. Who could come in and boot him?
Yep.
I think right now the only person who is more popular than Russell Wilson in the state of Colorado is actually up in Boulder, and I think that's Coach Prime.
Wow, you've got Prime booting Wilson. I've got Elway as well. I think Elway is the all-time favorite in Denver, and I don't think anyone trumps Elway. Although at very particular places and maybe breweries, you might have John Denver, had he still been alive, be able to top John Elway.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Elway's definitely up there. Although I guess I never even think he's here in Colorado, so that's probably why my mind just like skipped over him. But that was bad on my part.
Coeur d'Alene, baby.
Right, yeah, exactly. I would say right now, like relevant people, Prime would be up there for me. Like I remember talking actually. I listened to James and Will. They were talking on Denver Sports Tonight about like who could throw out the first pitch before opening day for the Rockies. And they were like, I think the only person right now that would really make people be like, oh my gosh, was Coach Prime. So it's probably why I was like, oh yeah, Prime, of course. And we're going to talk about the Buffs here in just a second, Jake. But if there's anybody else, I'm actually curious. Let us know in the comments too who you think could boot Russell Wilson. But yeah, otherwise, I'm trying to like rack my brain of anybody. I can't see
Well,
Jokic.
I can't see Jokic either. I can't see any other current Denver athlete.
Me either.
The ones that are like a maybe in restaurant specific would be like Lindsey Vonn or Michaela Schifrin.
Sure.
Um, or maybe even like Lindsey Horan or Mal Pugh, but like that's like we're talking about like that's a soccer bar, or
Yeah.
that's like a this is a little lodge owned by a skier or something like that.
Yep.
Someone in the comments said Lewis Hamilton.
I just
That's
saw
a
that.
great pick, but I don't think that Lewis even is nearly as famous in Denver as Russ. And this is coming from the biggest F1 fan that works at Denver Sports. Like, I understand Lewis globally is about 100 times more famous than Russ,
Yep.
just not locally here in Denver. So that's a good pick. Here's a good one scenario. Russ and Sierra are sitting at a table and they already got the last table at the restaurant because that was the one roped out and it was the best seat, and it's the whole thing from Ted Lasso where Nathan Shelley wants the table.
Yep.
Okay. Taylor Swift walks in. Does the Denver restaurant owner kick out Russ and Sierra for T Swift?
Absolutely. I'm not even a big Swiftie. If Will Peterson was in here, he would be like 100%. I'm not even a big Swiftie, but you give it to Taylor Swift. Although I think she is generous enough that she would not make that happen. I also saw in the comments people are saying Peyton Manning.
Peyton probably gets Russ but doesn't get John.
I would second that. I think yeah, I would actually second that.
Yeah.
That's an interesting conversation. I like this scenario. Is this what you bring up at dinner parties?
This and a whole lot of other stupid things. Rachel, I'll give you another one of my dinner conversation party topics, and I don't know if I've given this one to you. How many birds would you need to be in your house before you got suspicious that somebody was playing a prank on you rather than the birds themselves were like just finding a way into your house? My answer is 3. Like I could see 1, maybe 2 sneaking in, like 2 buddies. But like if it's 3, someone's doing something to me.
I'm going 2 for sure. 1 could sneak in, although I'd be very impressed if it actually did it. 2, I'm like, okay, something's going on here for sure. Jake, did you get to watch my vlog yesterday that went out?
No, I was literally trying to watch it while DMAC was having tech issues. So I'm like I'm like 2 minutes into it.
Okay, well, if you didn't have an opportunity to, I highly recommend it. We show a lot of fun behind the scenes. But I had a bear across the street from my house during the Nuggets game on Sunday night. Literally, my boyfriend was trying to scare the bear off with a leaf blower, and I'm not even exaggerating in the slightest. He took a leaf blower. The bear did not care one bit about it. So, of course, he then got the car out and was trying to like blind the bear essentially in a non-harmful way, but to try and get it to move on. And the bear was just like, no, I'm sticking around. But could you just imagine walking out your front door with a leaf blower being like, all right, let's go for this?
Yes, I can because I grew up in Boulder, Colorado, and my family's house opened up into open space. And we had
So
Great
good.
Pyrenees, which are the only dogs that have ever beaten a mountain lion in a fight. So like mountain lions would like come like near us, and I'd be like, it's fine. Like I got a 150-pound dog. But in high school at Boulder High, we went on lockdown one day, not because of any awful, harmful reason, but because I guess this could be one. There was a bear outside. And they didn't want to, we had an open campus, so no students, like they didn't want any students outside. So what did me and the crack team of student news journalists at Boulder High do? We went outside and tried to find that bear. It's probably not even in the top 5 dumbest things I did in high school. But it was a funny day. We had the bear lockdown. Yep.
It was a memorable one for sure. Well, hopefully this fall is going to be memorable for the Buffs up in Boulder because for the first time in 27 years, season tickets are sold out for the Buffs. Now, as a former Buff, Jake, how happy does this make you?
Forever Buff. We're Forever Buffs up there. And I still am. I'll be up there today. It's a very important distinction, Rachel. We get very sensitive about this, the CU Mafia. We're very excited. We're very excited. I'll speak on behalf of the entire CU Mafia to have this type of excitement around our very stinky football program that has been very bad for very long. We've got Deion Sanders, most people have heard, and it's very fun. There's a hype around us. We've got one of the 3 college coaches in all of the land that matters. It's Nick Saban, it's Kirby Smart. You can make a case for Lincoln Riley, but it's really Deion Sanders. Who's in those insurance commercials? It's our guy. And clearly, he is going to be at CU Boulder for forever. And this is just the start of a dynasty. And we're excited. We're excited. And we sold out the spring game. By the way, my sister-in-law is going to this. And she goes, what's this whole spring game about that everyone's talking about? I'm like, well, it's a practice and the team plays itself. She's like, but I should go, right? I'm like, probably not. Like, it's going to be very boring. I've been to like 10 of these things, and every time has been a terrible experience. She's like, but maybe I could get autographs from some former Buffs that are in the NFL. I'm like, what former Buffs are in the NFL? I'm like, it's Chidobe Awuzie and Josh Tupou. And she's a Bengals fan, so she's like, perfect. And I'm like, great. We've got one more person coming onto the bandwagon. Oh, and I was on a podcast with a CSU person the other day, Rachel, and even they are rooting for CU and the success of the Buffaloes. So you are not alone in your like CSU Ram joining the fun bandwagon, rooting for the state of Colorado thing. I did admit to this person, and I will admit to you, if Deion Sanders went to CSU and was doing this at CSU, I would be the world's biggest hater of CSU Rams, just so you know.
It's definitely one of those things where I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a bummer for my college, for the Rams, for CSU. The chances of them winning against Coach Prime and the Buffs anytime soon are very slim, but at the same time, it's really exciting for Colorado, and it puts Colorado on the map. So as a native of here, that's what I'm excited about. So it's interesting. For the first time, I can't believe it, 27 years, that's how old I am. It's the first time that season tickets, are sold out. Which,
and you know what's
I was just
funny
gonna say,
about that?
I've heard all about, the glory days when it came to the Buffs. And so I'm kind of excited to, hopefully be able to witness it again.
The funniest part about the 27 years is it was in the middle of the glory days. So that means the Buffs didn't sell out their season tickets after like 6-10 wins in a row in a year in which they won like 9 games and went to like some national bowl. And then like for the next 5 to 7 years, they again went to national promise. So like, one of the best CU teams of all time was like 2001, 2004. They were really good. So like this is going back to 1995, 1996, and CU was still really good for another couple of years. It just goes to show you that this is historically, and as we know, people in Denver, historically, yeah, there is a good blimp of Colorado football, but Boulder is not set up for a successful college football program.
Yeah.
However, with the entire sport changing on its head, can we bring a mercenary in here that knows and learns at the feet of other programs and is just a national star? And can we make it work that way? Might as well try. We've tried everything else. So it's fascinating, that 27-year number, because it tells a deeper story than it does on its surface of, oh yeah, CU used to be good. CU used to be good, and we're still good in the middle of that 27, so why did it tail off?
True. Is the Prime insurance commercial better than Saban Affleck?
They're all bad.
At least you're honest. Okay, we
like,
can.
none of them are Liberty Bibberty. Like, give me Liberty Bibberty.
Oh my gosh, I hate those commercials so much. So much. You actually just triggered me a little bit there, Jake. Jerry Jeudy is wanting to change his number, but he says, heck no, I'm not willing to pay for that money. Now, Jake, I don't know the number, and I went to look it up before the show. Do you know how much it costs to change your number?
Yeah, so Jerry Jeudy sent this tweet, and Dalvin Cook changed his number, Rachel, a couple years ago. Pro Football Talk reported that he paid about $1.5 million to buy out all of the existing jerseys that were made by Nike at retail prices. They can't do this at cost. They do this at retail prices. Keep in mind, Rachel, we're a couple years later, so inflation, but also Jerry's not as popular of a player as Dalvin, just because, I would say because he's a Pro Bowler, Dalvin, and Jerry hasn't gotten there yet, so I think that's fair. So I would say for Jerry, this would cost between $1 million and $1.5 million. You also have to factor in Dalvin had also had a $50 million contract extension by the time he changed jersey numbers, and Jerry's only made $12 million in his career so far. So this would cost a huge chunk of money and a huge percentage of Jerry Jeudy's money.
Oh my gosh, that is outrageous to change your number. And I saw Melvin Gordon actually had chimed in on Twitter too, saying, like if you give him a year's notice or something around those, like you can get it for free. So it looks like Melvin Gordon's still good with Jerry Jeudy over there.
Yeah, Melvin, the ultimate teammate, still talking up Russ at the Super Bowl, all that stuff. We don't need to rehash the Melvin stuff. But the thing with Jerry is he's so incredibly unlucky with this because the
True.
NFL changed the jersey rules prior to the 2021 season, where wide receivers now can wear single digits instead of just 10 to 19 and 80 to 89 like we've known most of our lives. They just kind of grouped in all the skill position guys. Jerry became an NFL player just a year before. So he was set up to fail if he always wanted to wear number 4 because he never had that chance coming out of college and he was always going to have to switch. Now, if he gets traded, which we've heard has been floated, he can change that jersey number for free.
True. Would you do it if you were Jerry Judy? Would you change your number for, like, let's just go $1.2 million?
If I've made $50 million in my career, yes. If I've made 12 like Jerry, no. I'm pretty superstitious, but that's just me as a baseball player growing up. I don't know how superstitious football players are, but I could not be wearing anything but like 95, my birth year, 13, which was one of my lucky numbers, 7 or 4. If I was wearing anything else, I knew I'd have a bad season.
Oh, okay. But what if you're getting drafted all of a sudden and all those numbers are gone? What the heck are you gonna do?
Trying to buy out one of the players wearing that uniform, or
Okay.
hopefully I play one of the same positions as those guys and I beat them out in training camp and have them lose a roster spot. Look, it's a dog-eat-dog world.
It's a dog world. I'm reading what the comments are saying. Don't get a piece of their jersey sales. They do get a small percentage. The remaining 10.8 million seems like enough to be happy. Or I think the lifestyle is a little different once you're making that much money. Someone said Rachel just giving away her age. Yeah, I got nothing to hide, all right? 27 years old. January 12th is the birthday. I wonder what the return was on his 1.5 million. GoFundMe for Judy from Paul. That's actually funny. Could you imagine if a player was like, hey, I need help so I can change my number?
Well, you know what would be smart of him? GoFundMe, help me change my number. If you meet me halfway to the cost that I've been told, I will meet it. And why I would do that, Rachel, is I will give anyone who does that 2 jerseys, 2 Jerry Judy jerseys, one in blue, one in orange with the old number. So basically you're buying 2 jerseys for the price of one with the old number because Jerry will own all of these jerseys because he's bought them out.
Sign a couple autographs, boom,
Right.
boom. Okay, but realistically, how many people would do that? Because no offense, I'm not buying those jerseys. Let us know in the comments if you would, because I'm not doing it. Would you?
I don't want to.
Maybe some huge Alabama fans would jump on that bandwagon for sure. You never know, I guess. We
Pretty much.
know how the Crimson Tide, they ride together. Jake, you're also a huge basketball fan. And I'm assuming you watched the Warriors game last night, correct?
Oh, yes, I did.
Okay, so we can get into this a little bit because Charles Barkley comes out. If you didn't see it, Draymond Green essentially stomps. And can you please remind me of the player's name? Because, again, I'm bad at pronunciations.
Dominus Sabonis.
Sabonis, right?
Yeah, Dominus Sabonis.
Boom, I got it. He essentially stomps on this man's chest, and he gets ejected from the game. Charles Barkley comes out and says, yeah, if someone grabbed onto my leg, I would do the exact same thing. When you initially watched the play, is that what you thought happened? And would you have done that same scenario, since we're going back and forth on these types of things anyways?
The first thing that I saw when I saw it happen was the stomp. I saw it right away.
Okay.
And I said, I cannot wait to listen to Draymond Green's podcast.
I thought that too, which is so funny. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, and now it's hilarious. Not that Sabonis might be hurt. He's getting an X-ray and an MRI today. He's an all-star player. He's probably the 3rd best center in the league behind Jokic and Embiid right now. Son of Arvydas Sabonis, one of the greatest big men of all time. Just great basketball lineage. But as a counter to Sabonis getting some imaging, the Warriors released right before the show started that Draymond Green is getting X-rays on his ankle for the stop,
way.
which is just an incredible troll job. I don't know how seriously hurt he is, but that's just great. And Steve Kerr, by the way, you are one of the most courageous people in sports, not afraid to speak up on just about anything that comes to your mind. A legend who I think is responsible for 27% of the titles in the last 40 years of NBA history, because he's either been a player with Jordan or the Spurs, or a coach with the Spurs and now the Warriors during all these championships during the last 4 years. So he's a huge part of basketball history. But dude, you got to have more after the game than, oh, I haven't seen it yet. My coaches told me he might get kicked out. Like, you got to have a little bit more there. And Rachel, this is coming at a fascinating time because, of course, we had the Draymond Green punch of Jordan Poole, which has split the Warriors' locker room, according to my little birdies. But you've also got Draymond in a contract year. He's a free agent at season's end. And this could be the end of the Warriors dynasty.
Could this be the end of the Warriors dynasty? I just saw a quote from Steph Curry, too, who got asked about that, and he said it's not ending anytime soon. How interesting, though. I did not realize he was on a contract year. Of course, obviously, we don't want anybody to be hurt out of this situation, but it is just funny how Draymond Green continues to pop up in these types of scenarios. But what really honestly sparked the whole thing is I originally hadn't even planned on talking about it, but the fact that Charles Barkley came out and said, I would have done the exact same thing. And Charles Barkley is so well respected. So it does make you have this like, okay, well, if I was in that situation, what would I have done?
I'm not, I don't know. I was a really dirty player when I played sports, so I probably would have. I like to think that now in my life I wouldn't have done that, but man, I only have one speed, so probably I played dirty. But Charles, we paint him with this glossy, cartoonish character vibe because of what we know him as now. But there's a reason why Charles Barkley's famous for telling people he is not a role model. He was on the edge. He was a dirty player at times. He was constantly causing problems. He was the round mound to rebound, one of the greatest rebounders in NBA history, and he's 6'5", 6'6". Like, you need to be throwing bows. You need to be stomping on people. You need to be doing different things. And back when Charles played, some of this was a little bit more acceptable than it is now. Thankfully, we've gotten rid of a lot of it. But yeah, like, it's a playoff series, and if Draymond knows I can do something that's going to kick me out of this game, we're already going to lose, but not further and possibly hurt this guy, I think I'm doing that too.
And actually, I do want to correct myself because as we sat there talking about it, I was thinking back on the career. Shaq is the one who had said I would have done it too. I want to make sure that I do correct that, which again, another respectable individual. And I love the TNT broadcasts. I think they're phenomenal. But Shaq is the one that did have that quote. But I believe Charles Barkley also did chime in on that. So I do just find it so interesting because if I was in that situation, like, you're either going to do that or you're going to fall over, right? So it's kind of like, oh, Draymond's going to get all this hate for it. But if you were in that exact same situation, I find those conversations so interesting. The what-if conversations.
The best was Sabonis getting a foul for being the guy laying there that got stomped on. Like, what do you want him to do? Like, this was going back to the Lakers Clippers series in the bubble. And I tweeted this, and it's one of the favorite tweets I've ever sent. That trend was going around the last couple days. The Clippers could take a chainsaw to Nikola Jokic, and it would be a foul on Jokic for impeding the chainsaw. Like, there were certain fouls in that series where it's like Paul George or Kawhi or someone has just punched Nikola Jokic, and Jokic got a foul for being the punching bag. What are we doing here?
Poor Jokic, too. Every single time you see him, he's just got scars all over his arms, scabs. I feel like if you don't see blood on his arms, clearly something's going wrong for Jokic. But I also do want to talk about, because I know you do, the Mile High Baseball podcast every Friday, 1 p.m. Kris Bryant finally does what we've all been waiting for him to do, and that is hit a home run at Coors Field. It only took a full season, Jake.
Yay.
Woo!
They only lost 14-3 last night. The Steelers beat the Broncos. Football score was not good for the Rockies. Hey Rachel, here's some fun Rockies things from last night. Kyle Freeland was their best pitcher so far this season. Had a 0.96 ERA. Was allowing less than 1 run per 9 innings over his starts so far. He got shelled. I think he allowed 7 earned runs in 3 innings. He has no chance at winning anything this year in terms of awards now, and his ERA and his stats are going to look terrible. Do you know who the guy pitching for the other team was last night and was pitching against Kris Bryant that allowed that home run?
For the Pirates, correct?
Uh-huh.
Does it start with an M?
No, but
Dang
that's
it.
his nickname. So you're close. So Rich Hill, his nickname is D period Mountain. He's worn that on his jersey before.
Okay.
He is 43, 44 years old. Barely can touch 88 miles an hour, and the Rockies managed one run, a solo shot off of him. That's what makes this game even more pathetic, Rach. Like, like it's not like they're playing the Yankees or the even the Cardinals last week. They're playing the Pirates. They're getting their butts kicked by the Pirates and the Nationals. It's funny, by the way, because you could tell, and I'll just, D-Mac's not here. D-Mac clearly didn't watch enough baseball last year because the Mariners are good last year now. And after the series the other night, he tweeted, he was like, the Mariners, you can't get swept by a team that lousy. And it's like, the Mariners are good now, D-Mac. But the Pirates are not. The Pirates are still really bad, and the Rockies got embarrassed last night. And it only made sense that Chris Bryant would have one of the best days that he's had so far as a Rocky, not just with a home run. He had 3 hits yesterday in a game that completely was out of hand and did not matter. Alan Trejo, the Rockies' backup shortstop, pitched in the game, Rachel, by the end of it.
Oh my gosh, it is such a Rockies thing, and I know if D-Mac was here, he would say, I know the Rockies stink, but Chris Bryant did hit his first home run of his career at Coors Field. Well, actually, it's not of his career because he did have some as a Cub, correct?
It had been 6 years since Chris Bryant had hit a home run at Coors Field, and he did so as a Cub when he won the MVP. I think it was the year after the Cubs won the World Series, but man, it was a lifetime ago. Just thinking the other night, when I was talking to Jamal, I'm like, it's been 930 days since we saw you in a playoff game.
Yep.
Double that amount is the last time Chris Bryant hit a home run at Coors Field.
I know, seriously, that is actually just wild to think about. Even that stat with Jamal, every time somebody says it, I'm like, wow, it's really been that long. Time kind of does fly. Jake, for tonight's game against the Kraken, how are you feeling about it?
I feel good. I'm not going to call them as anonymous as the other guys seem to think. Martin Jones is a goaltender with a lot of experience in this league. So is Philip Grubauer. Neither of those guys are slouches. That's the reason why they're here. Their goaltending's been pretty decent. They don't have the star power, as Will pointed out. But the way the NHL expansion draft worked is a lot of teams got a lot of really solid veteran players, and they're just deep 1 through 18 of guys that are solid NHL players. And that's where the Kraken are. They've got a nice couple players. I think Jordan Eberle and like Adam Larson, who once got a huge contract from the Devils. So they're a decent team. Like, they're a decent team. I don't know if it's going to be as easy as the Pred series was, but I'm taking the Avs in 5 in this series. Tonight should be a good start to the Avs playoff run, particularly with everyone coming back healthy. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Avs get off to a little bit of a rusty start, but ultimately find a way, as they used to say, to get it done towards the end of the game.
What is their new slogan again?
One way.
Our way.
Our way. And you know what it'll be once they win, Rachel? It'll be one way with a W, our way.
Oh, I thought you were going to say one way to find a way or something along that way. Okay,
but
interesting.
The Nuggets one will be not bring it in, but brought it in. Really creative stuff going on down there at Chopper Circle.
I see. Jake, I appreciate you hopping in with us today. I love the conversations. To everybody in the comments, of course, we love hanging out with you guys every single day. To Will Peterson, we'll be talking to him tomorrow following the Avs game. And then, of course, we get ready for another Nuggets playoff game, which Jake and I will both be at, and we'll be bringing you all the coverage. So we will see you guys tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. for another episode of Coffee Break. Get ready. The next 3 days are going to be absolutely crazy, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Have a good Tuesday. Bye, everybody.